Hello, everybody. Welcome to Millennial Nation Worldwide. I am your host, the OG Millennial. Like, comment, and subscribe at Millennial Nation Worldwide. You could also follow me at O_G_Millennial. That's on the Instagram and Facebook, as well as YouTube, right? We're going to do a little bit of talking about some combat sports today. We're going to do some reviewing of AEW's pay-per-view that they had last night on Sunday, the Revolution pay-per-view. We're going to do a little bit of talking about Jake Paul with Donald Trump. We're going to do some talking about Ronda Rousey. She's seems to be in the news a lot lately, so we're going to do some talking about her and a little bit more. But to start things off, I guess I would like to just say happy 316 day, right? Austin 316. He made this big statement when he first blew up, saying that basically Austin 316 means I just whooped your ass, because they have the John 316s and the Mark 316s. So he created this slogan called Austin 316, which means that I just whooped your ass. So in honor of Stone Cold Steve Austin, if you know his beer, go on ahead and crack you one of those Broken Skull IPAs, and we're going to tribute it to Stone Cold Steve Austin, man. Speaking of Stone Cold Steve Austin and 316 Day, he was talking on the Busted Open podcast today with Dave LaGreca and Bully Ray, and he was giving some really cool insights to what he's doing in his off time. He's been promoting and doing a lot of off-road derby work, apparently. He's trying to get in with a racing league, I guess, out there in the desert of, I think he said Arizona. So he's in the process of building like a derby car and whatnot, and seems to be really excited about that. They did ask him if Stone Cold was gonna be making an appearance in WrestleMania, and Stone Cold did say that he did not yet get a call from WWE about making an appearance. But even if he did, he wouldn't want to make an appearance in a wrestling match. He would rather have it be like a moment. But of course, he mentioned the moment he had last year at WrestleMania where he was on a quad and he rammed that quad into a steel barricade, right, with a whole bunch of fans behind it. And it made the news. And Stone Cold hasn't been back on the WWE product since that incident happened. And Stone Cold Steve Austin made a note of it. He said that, he hadn't been put in any plans, and that he wouldn't be surprised if what had happened last year could be a reason why they haven't necessarily reached out to him. But you don't want to necessarily count him out altogether, right? If WWE comes through with a couple giant bags, I'm sure Stone Cold will pick those bags up and walk out with them for a quick appearance on one night, maybe both nights, but we'll see, right? I think that it's definitely going to be good for the generating of money, right? The amount of money that could be made with a quick Stone Cold appearance would be pretty good, I think, for the WWE brand, because it's kind of been getting some criticism here and there about their shows not being great. But at the same time, a lot of the complaints about WWE is the fact that they keep on going back to the well of trying to pull out these older wrestlers that are like in their 50s and 60s, right, who are kind of living their lives, doing their own thing. Now they want to keep bringing them back to try and pull in the audience that are around my age, when they should be focusing on trying to get those 20-year-olds locked in the way I was, like in my 20s, right? And I don't necessarily see that happening, especially if you keep on pulling out these grandfather wrestlers, right? These guys are grandpas now. Stop making these guys get in the ring, in my opinion. But that's just my personal opinion. Yeah, speaking of the WWE, right, and their pay-per-view, the WrestleMania that they got coming up in April, AEW had a pay-per-view. They had a pay-per-view yesterday, and AEW's pay-per-view yesterday was titled AEW Revolution, and it had some interesting highlights. I myself did not watch it because I don't pay for pay-per-views. And I don't buy extra streaming services anymore to watch particular products. WWE, so there's fairness. I'm not investing all my money in these corporations anymore. But I did watch the highlights on YouTube from AEW. I watched Denise Salcedo, I think is her name. She gave like one of those watch parties. So she was giving her commentary while playing videos, and I watched that. And then, of course, the great fan cams of the people who were actually there in the stadium, right? Filming with their own cameras. I find those to be the best shots because you get an opportunity to not only see from the fans' perspective what the fans are seeing, but you get to hear their commentary on the side too, right? So you hear like two slack-jawed yokels giving their opinion on what the match is, and you also get to hear how the crowd is actually interacting, right? So when you're watching the product, you might not hear fans booing, but when that fan cam is up, you could distinctly hear boos, right? And there was a segment where those boos came through very clearly, and it was for a big name person. So just to get a quick little overview of what I saw from everyone on the internet, we basically got Adam Copeland, right, and Christian Cage. Okay, for you old heads, it's Edge and Christian, right? That's why I kind of flaked a little bit trying to find it on the page, right? These guys got new names. Adam Copeland and Christian Cage, formerly Edge and Christian, have been on and off the AEW product now for a couple years. They made a return and intervened in the Young Bucks versus FTR tag team match. I believe, if I remember the highlight correctly, they were holding up the belts at the end, so it's possible we might see a three-way tag team battle for the tag team belts. Will Ospreay also made a return from his neck injury. He was out because he had some neck surgery done, but he made a return and did a crazy move off of the top turnbuckle to some guys on the outside of the ring, which is about a 10 to 12 foot drop, right? So he flipped about 12 feet onto a bunch of people, which was kind of interesting. They had the MJF versus Adam Copeland title match for their main belt, and that was a pretty gruesome match. MJF pulled it out by pretty much hanging Adam Page with a chain on the outside of the ring while he was on the inside of the ring. But that wasn't the most gruesome thing. The most gruesome thing I saw was a syringe needle popped through the guy's cheek, right? One guy took a syringe needle, stabbed it through the guy's cheek, pushed the button in so you see liquid coming out. It wasn't for me necessarily. But I'm not knocking the people who do like that, right? Like, it was titled a Texas Death Match. So when you have something called Texas Death, you're going to expect it to kind of be gruesome. I wasn't expecting to see that, though, right? John Moxley beat up Takeshita, apparently, and kept the belt. The Babes of Wrath lost their title belts, right? Their tag team title belts. But I guess Willow Nightingale kept her original TBS title during their preliminary matches or something like that. But what apparently is really taking the crutch of the show is Ronda Rousey, right? It was very, very cool, kind of, I guess, in a way, to see Ronda Rousey make an entrance back into the wrestling ring. Last time I saw Ronda Rousey in a wrestling ring, she was working for WWE. It was a second run that she had, and it wasn't a great run, right? She didn't seem excited to be there. The management didn't seem to be putting her in the best storyline situations, and ultimately Ronda Rousey ended up leaving the wrestling business. But when she left the wrestling business, she left with a chip on her shoulder, right? She was talking a lot of trash and negative things about the way WWE's management ran their organization. And similar comments to what she said about the UFC, about how WWE is only focused on making as much money as they financially can, which there's a lot of truth to that, right? But I find it interesting that, for having such a passionate position about wrestling being fake and wrestling being BS, which was Ronda Rousey's stance when she left the WWE. She's like, hey, this is all bullshit anyway, right? Like, and she just started talking down. She still talks down about the product. But now she's back in the wrestling ring again, right? But for the competition, AEW. Congratulations, Tony Khan, for landing this contract, right? I saw the picture on the internet that said that she's all elite wrestling. I don't know what type of deal you're going to sign her to, Tony Khan, but if you did sign her to an actual contract, I would like to see what you're going to do with her. Aside from just pairing her up with Marina Shafir, which is kind of the reason why Ronda Rousey was out there to begin with. Her friend Marina Shafir, part of the Four Horsewomen with Shayna Baszler and Jazabin Duke in the WWE, right? her friend Marina Shafir had a match last night at the pay-per-view against Toni Storm, one of AEW's top women wrestlers and former women's champion. And like I said, I didn't watch the pay-per-view, so I don't know how the match went necessarily, but at the end, I believe it was probably Toni Storm who won, because at the end, apparently Toni Storm was laying down on the stage and Ronda Rousey comes out, gets in the ring uh, to some boos, right? She was getting a lot of boos. And I guess she like points down to the ring, like come down to the ring, Toni Storm. And Toni Storm gets up, comes down to the ring, and they have a little face off real quick. And then Marina Shafir comes up from behind and then, kind of cracks Toni Storm and knocks her out. And then Ronda Rousey and Marina Shafir, they exit. They leave going through the crowd. They're flipping everybody off, right? Marina Shafir's big thing is giving people the bird, right? So she's going around, she's flipping everybody off, and Ronda Rousey is joining her, flipping everybody off and stuff, right? Good stuff. Uh, and then I don't know if that's how. No, that's not how they ended it. Obviously, they probably ended it with MJF and Hangman Adam Page, but that seems to be what most people are talking about, right? And it's kind of interesting, to hear the reaction from the fans a little bit, right? Like the fact that she was booed a lot and kind of loudly, but I'm not sure if they were booing because she is going to be a heel helping out Marina Shafir, the bad person, or if it was just like, really, we don't want her in a wrestling ring, right? I couldn't imagine AEW fans holding a personal grudge against a wrestler who could help bring eyes to their product and increase their marketability, right? Like AEW fans should be all behind whatever that it is Tony Khan and AEW are doing, to help bring more eyes to the product, because that's how you stay on television, right? That's how you stay on the internet. So it wasn't just AEW that Ronda Rousey made an appearance on. A couple days ago, she was in LA, right? This was all at the Intuit Dome, I believe, right? So she was having a press conference for Most Valuable Promotion, Jake Paul's fighting promotion. And she was promoting the card. They were promoting the second fight between Nagano and Lynn's. I don't know. I got to check the video again. But she had a opportunity to give an interview, right? Because it's a press conference. So somebody asked her a question about UFC. And she made a comment about UFC and Dana White and how she felt that UFC, like WWE, is only focused on trying to get that money, right? Trying to get that big bag from the people. And she made a point that the fighters there are underpaid, right? She made a comment about one of the fighters having to do OnlyFans, like she's doing a mild pornography on OnlyFans, and other fighters aren't making like a living wage, fighting these fights, I guess. And she hasn't been the only one who's made those particular comments. I remember Matt Riddle making some comments against the UFC also, right, and Dana White. But being a former employee of organizations that I've quit or I've been fired from, I know what it's like to have that negativity of being let go or leaving a place, and having a platform to vent about it, right, and just getting it all out of my system. But it doesn't necessarily mean that, everything that I was venting about the organization I was working with was necessarily true, right? Like if I were really in my feelings, I'd be trying to throw as much dirt and shade on organizations as I possibly could, right? So I'm sure there's a lot of truth to what Ronda Rousey and other former UFC fighters are saying, but in the end, these guys, they fight once or twice a year, and they make way more money than I make every year, and so it's hard to kind of feel sorry for them. But it is something that can cause long-term damage, these combat sports. So it's going to be very cool, but very dangerous. But, people are fighting for money. And when you're out there and you're fighting for money, you got to take what comes along with it, right? So hopefully UFC does good, right? They got some big competition in MVP, Most Valuable Promotions, right? Jake Paul and this organization, Most Valuable Promotions, are really starting to make news and headway into sports entertainment, right? And we're going to talk about that a little bit. But before we talk about MVP, Most Valuable Promotion, we're going to talk about UFC some more, because they have a fight card happening And it's going to be on the White House lawn. Apparently, it's UFC 250th, and they're titling it Freedom. And it's going to be a pretty interesting show, I believe, right? Like, I think it's going to be 6 or 7 fights that's on the card. But out of all the names that are on the card, the only fight that I'm really looking forward to, honestly, is the Shane O'Malley fight. Like, I personally like Shane O'Malley. I think he is a bad motherfucker, right? He's one bad MF. And he normally wins, right? So I would put my money on him to win, but we're not telling people who to bet on, right? But I wish I knew more names on this card, though, right? It doesn't seem like a tremendous fight card considering the names that are out there, right? Like Conor McGregor was a name that was mentioned that could be on the card, and there's a lot of old school people, John Jones, right? Anderson Silva, a lot of fighters out there who are not doing anything, right? Um, and those fighters subsequently are getting picked up in fights by Jake Paul and MVP, right? Like there's going to be a fight in May, right? May 16th that MVP is promoting. And they only have 2 fights on that card so far. So they need to do something to fill up the rest of that card. And there are a lot of potential fighters out there that they can call up and bring in that have names that were brought from the UFC. And so I wonder sometimes if UFC is missing out on those names, but at the same time, everybody's replaceable, right? Except Donald Trump and apparently Jake Paul, right? Like these guys are friends, right? I saw some videos online. These guys are doing the Donald Trump dance, right? And they're having press conferences and shaking hands, and we're gonna get into that right now, right? Like if you like Donald Trump or if you don't like Donald Trump, that's on you, right? Like everybody's entitled to their own opinion. I personally don't have a huge problem with Donald Trump. Like my name is Donald Rump, and a lot of times I get crap because my name is so close to his name when I show my ID to people, right? And they're like, "Oh man," and I'm like, "Yeah, I know." And then I just normally say, "Whatever side you're on is the side that I'm on," right? Because I don't want to argue with people over this guy. But Jake Paul is hanging out with Donald Trump, right? It doesn't surprise me too much because Logan Paul is a big fan and advocate of Donald Trump as well. So the Paul brothers are buddying up and getting close with Mr. President Donald Trump, which is smart on their part, right? But I'm wondering how smart it is on Donald Trump's part as well, right? Because like Donald Trump has always been a fan of fighting. He was cool with Don King back in the day. I remember him being in the stands and them recording him in the stands at a lot of fights from the 80s all the way up until present day, right? I think he was at one of the UFC cards last year. And so I'm wondering, like, is this Donald Trump's way of like trying to uh, reach out to the younger base now, or is he strictly just about the combat sports aspect of it, right? Because like if Donald Trump has an opportunity to do something with Jake Paul and MVP Promotions, it would be very interesting because Donald Trump has a lot of properties, which would be venues that MVP could hold future fighting events at, right? So I think it's smart on Jake Paul's part, but I also think Jake Paul is just the face. There's the other guys that are behind it too, and I don't remember his name, but if you watch any of the video footage of the upcoming fights for MVP that have been on Netflix, he's always in the background. I'll try and get some information and dig some stuff up on him because I think he's the guy who's really running MVP, right? I think Jake Paul is just the face of the company, but whether Jake Paul is running this new promotion or whether he's just the face, Jake Paul is putting in that work and getting that product out to the market, right? Like, and using Donald Trump and the president's platform is the best way to do it because you're automatically going to get press coverage. But because Donald Trump is the name that Donald Trump is, you got to take the good with the bad, right? For every person, you're going to be like, yeah, that's cool, you're working with him. There's going to be another person like, oh, you're a piece of shit for working with this guy, right? So it's all about where you stand, right? There's numbers that represent this stuff, apparently. So wherever you stand is where you stand at. I stand with Millennial Nation and Millennial Nation worldwide. And our stance overall is if that shit ain't affecting my pockets or my lifestyle, I'm not going to worry about it too much, right? Because there's too much stuff happening in this world that I got to deal with already. Like, comment, and subscribe. And that's how we're going to end this show. You know, it's Monday. I'm going to be going live again here in about 2 hours. You probably won't see this until after the show because this isn't live. This is me building up to live. I got to get to 100 subscribers on YouTube, and then I could go live. That's enough with this camera. And then, 20 minutes. All right, it's not bad. It's under 30 minutes so far. Okay. But yeah, I need 100 of y'all on YouTube. Once we get to 100, I'll be able to start going live. But 5 o'clock Pacific Standard Time, technically speaking news every Monday. Join us. I run the Millennial Moment segment, right? We normally flash back on stuff that's relatable to us millennials, right? So like, comment, and subscribe, right? Millennial Nation Worldwide. Or you can find me also on Instagram and Facebook, O_G_millennial. Yeah. All right, guys. Have fun.